Built in 1811 for part of the Wedgwood dynasty, Grade 2 listed Cliff Park Hall sits looking down on Rudyard Lake, and a more beautiful location you will not find in this part of the world. But the early Gothic Revival style mansion has a sinister recent history involving the then owner. Back on one September night in 2014, 79-year-old Brian Daly was taped to a medieval chair, hooded and repeatedly beaten around his head as brutal criminals ransacked his home of 50 years. They left 8 long hours later with a bleeding and terrified pensioner who was recovering from a triple heart bypass, still bound by gaffer tape. Among the dazzling array of antiques stolen included a gold ceremonial sword studded with opals which once belonged to Saddam Hussein, and a suit of armour worn by Oliver Cromwell. Other pieces taken were an original painting of a child called Time for a Nap, a 14-foot elephant gun, an Indian matchlock gun, Scottish broadswords, and an Indian snake horn with ruby eyes. In fact, the thieves found so much loot they also stole Mr. Daly's Mercedes van to cart it away. Although some of the items were regarded as priceless, the value of the goods, which represented a lifetime of collecting by Mr. Daly, was put at £200,000. But it was not just the objects that were stolen. The thieves also took Mr. Daly's financial security, as he had invested in the antiques as an alternative to savings or a pension, and he was not insured, and the raid left him virtually penniless, and he died the following year. Meanwhile, only some of the 7 members of the highly organised Eastern European gang were jailed for an aggravated burglary. Speaking at the time, Mr. Daly, a former actor and salesman, said, "I was coming back from Sainsbury's and it was just about 8 o'clock. I've got big iron gates to the courtyard at the back of the castle, and the gang just barged out. I felt a gloved hand around my mouth. My first instinct was somebody's having a joke, but then I couldn't breathe. I thought my heart was going to burst, then they kicked me to the floor. I shouted, 'My heart,' but they just said, 'Shut the F up.' I said, 'You're taking a risk, I've got a dog,' and my Alsatian Toby was barking like mad. They opened the door about 4 inches so his nose was sticking out, and hit him over the head with a baseball bat, which subdued him because he's never been hit before. They said, 'Tell us where the money is or we'll kill you.' They brought in 3 bales of bubble wrap and started taking my pictures off the wall. They were wrapping them in the most professional manner, as if they had come from a museum. All the time I was thinking about how I could get out of it. After they left, I managed to sort of walk the chair to a table where there was a glass. I held the glass with my mouth and smashed it on the table. With a piece of glass in my mouth, I was just able to saw through my bonds. I felt a bit like James Bond at that point. Mr. Daly was then able to drive to a neighbour's about a mile away. Police and an ambulance arrived within 20 minutes. He added, 'I'm anxious in my home. I don't want to sell up, but there's too many memories.' Following Mr. Daly's death in 2015, Cliff Park Hall was put up for sale. Sadly, it's fallen into disrepair, but features include a cantilevered stone staircase rising from the Grand Hall with a glazed oculus above. Covering a little under 10,000 square feet, there is a wealth of neo-Gothic and Georgian features inside, and 1.5 acres of land with a mooring on the lake. Cliff Park Hall was originally built between 1811 and 1830 for John Howarth at an estimated cost of £25,000. It was sold to the North Staffordshire Railway in 1904. Between 1908 and 1926, the building was used as the clubhouse for Rudyard Golf Club, and then from 1933 to 1969 it was a youth hostel before reverting back to a private residence. According to property site Zoopla, the hall sold in October 2016 for £480,000 after initially being listed for £600,000. John Howarth, the son of wealthy merchants, died in 1831 and left the Cliff Park estate to his cousin and lover, Fanny Bostock. Fanny was born in Horton in June 1796, the year before the Act of Parliament was passed to construct the dam. She lived most of her life at Cliff Park Hall. For 50 years after the dam was built, Rudyard Lake was a peaceful place with only private landowners allowed access to the shoreline and lake itself. 1849 marked the opening of the North Staffordshire Railway Churnet Valley branch. From 1851 to 1856, Fanny fought a 5-year-long court action against the North Staffordshire Railway to try and prevent their popularisation of the lake and reduce the influx of visitors by rail that they encouraged. She ultimately secured a permanent injunction which prevented the North Staffordshire Railway from using the lake for commercial activities. Fanny later died a spinster on 19th of March 1875, whereupon the Cliff Park estate was split up. The Reverend Edward Boothman, the husband of Fanny Bostock's niece, bought the hall and some of its land and buildings for £14,250, with the remaining land being sold off in smaller plots. These sales were largely responsible for the development of land around the lake as it is today. That is the history I found online, but what I found looking through the census doesn't quite add up. The history stated that John Howarth was living at Cliff Park until he died in 1831, and he left the property to a Fanny Bostock, who was born in 1796. The first census from 1841 shows a James Bostock living at Cliff Park. James is aged 30 and he has a wife named Harriet who is 23. They have a young baby son named Charles. They have 4 servants: Eliza Holmes, aged 20, Abraham Goodwin, aged 19, Anne Pigott, aged 14, and Jane Moss, aged 55. There is no Fanny Bostock here in 1841. By 1851 there is a Fanny Bostock living at Cliff Park, but she was born in 1811, not 1796. She is listed as a landed proprietor. Searching death records, there was a Fanny Bostock who died on the 19th of March 1875. I believe this is the lady the house was left to, but I don't believe she ever lived there. I've not been able to find the link between her and the Fanny Bostock that was born in 1811. Living at the house with Fanny is a Frances Augustus Bostock, who is listed as a visitor. She is aged 20, unmarried, and a farmer's daughter. I am guessing she is Fanny's niece. There is also a Mary Ann Dale, who is 20, and a nurse servant. Thomas Robinson, aged 15, who is a servant, and Henry Saw, aged 20, who is also a servant. The 1861 census is interesting, as it says that the head of the house is absent and Mary Ann Dale is in charge as housekeeper. She is aged 30. There is also a Sarah Dahin, aged 15, who is a house servant, and a 25-year-old William Robinson, who is a manservant of all work. And again on the 1871 census, Mary Ann Dale is listed as housekeeper of Cliff Park. She is now aged 40, and with her is Jane Brassington, who was 19 and a general servant. Where Fanny was in 1861 and 1871, I don't know, but looking through death records, I have a feeling that she died in 1863. Moving on to the 1881 census, and we have Frances Bostock living in the property. She is aged 49 and listed as Kindred Property Annuitant. I believe that means she was left the property, and annuitant means living off a pension or her own money. I believe this is the same Frances Augustus Bostock that was a niece visiting in 1851. Living with her is Mary Ann Dale, who is now 57, and she is also listed as an annuitant, and an Elizabeth Corbishley, who is aged 60 and a domestic servant. Moving on to 1891, and Frances Bostock is still at Cliff Park. She is now aged 58 and described as living on her own means. Mary Ann Dale is still with her. She is aged 69 and listed as a domestic servant. Frances Augustus Bostock died in 1911, aged 78, and Mary Ann Dale died in 1892, aged 71. By 1901, the house is being lived in by a new family. The history stated that the Reverend Edward Boothman bought the estate and married a niece of Fanny Bostock. Looking through records, I found Edward Boothman and he married a Charlotte Bostock, but I can find no record of him living at Cliff Park. So in 1901 we have Arthur Lee residing at Cliff Park. He is aged 48 and he is a cotton yard agent. His wife is named Ethel E. Lee and she is 29. Living with them is Arthur's brother, Egerton Thomas Lee. He is aged 47 and not listed as having an occupation. There is also an Emily Mayer, aged 21, who is a housemaid. In 1903, the North Staffordshire Railway bought the Cliff Park estate with the intention of constructing a golf course on the land between the hall and the lake. A year later, they secured an Act of Parliament to allow commercial activities on the lake. After overturning the Bostock Act of 1856, the North Staffordshire Railway were now empowered to rent out motor launches and rowing boats, and by 1905 a golf course had been laid out. Their intent was to demolish the hall and build a new clubhouse. However, the money for this was not forthcoming, and it was decided to use the hall itself as the clubhouse, with only changing rooms and locker rooms being added to the existing building. A new railway station, Rudyard Lake Station, later renamed to Cliff Park Halt, was built at the north end of the lake to serve the course. On the 1911 census, we have the Shoesmith family living in the property. The head is Richard John Shoesmith, who is aged 26 and he is a professional golfer. His wife is named Maud Ellen and she is 31. They have a daughter named Ellen and she is 3. Also living with them is Harry Edward Shoesmith, Richard's brother. He is 18 and listed as an assistant. Richard John Shoesmith was one of 4 brothers employed as golf professionals. Born in East Ashford in 1884, the family moved to Bromley in Kent soon afterwards, and he later served his apprenticeship at the local club, being listed as a club and ball maker on the 1901 census. He moved at some point to Neasden and played in the PGA Southern Qualifier at Watford in July 1908, from there presumably as an assistant to John Milne. The next year he became professional at the Rudyard Lake Club in Staffordshire and soon took his younger brother Harry there as his assistant. Golf was still fairly new in North Staffordshire and he played in the first PGA competition for the area in 1909. There were 11 entrants but 2 scratched. He finished second. He was appointed professional to the Timperley Club in Cheshire in May 1914 and remained until the club was sold in 1934. The buyer was the local council and it became the Altrincham Municipal Club, retaining Shoesmith as the professional until 1938. Richard Shoesmith died in Timperley on the 11th of February 1943, aged 58. The golf course, enlarged from 9 holes to 18 in 1908, closed in 1926, which was due to the general post-war conditions and reduced train services, together with the availability of newer golf courses that were more easily accessible from the local towns. Cliff Park Hall was then let privately until 1933, when its then current owners, London Midland and Scottish Railway, leased it to the Youth Hostels Association and it became known as Rudyard Lake Hostel. That is what the information online states, but looking at the 1921 census, it seems the hall was providing accommodation before 1926. It is still the golf club and the head of the household is an Ernest R. Bull, who is aged 33, and he is listed as manager of the golf club. His wife is named Alice E. Bull and she is 31. They have 3 members of staff living with them, and they are Lucy E. Twyford, aged 19, and she is a housemaid, Maud M. Handel, aged 20, and she is also a housemaid, and 19-year-old Sydney Rudling, who is a page. They have 11 guests staying with them from parts of Scotland and the Midlands, and they are all listed as working in engineering and employed by Metropolitan Vickers Electric Company of Manchester. Metropolitan Vickers, Metrovic or Metrovix, was a British heavy electrical engineering company of the early to mid-20th century, formerly known as British Westinghouse. Highly diversified, it was particularly well known for its industrial electrical equipment such as generators, steam turbines, switchgear, transformers, electronics and railway traction equipment. Metrovic holds a place in history as the builders of the first commercial transistor computer, the Metrovic 950, and the first British axial flow jet engine, the Metropolitan Vickers F2. Its factory in Trafford Park, Manchester, was for most of the 20th century one of the biggest and most important heavy engineering facilities in Britain and the world. The youth hostel opened its doors on the 1st of June 1933, and Rudyard Lake Hostel proved to be one of the YHA's more popular venues. The 1939 register is interesting because even though the youth hostel is listed, a lot of the names are blacked out, which usually means there is a possibility the people could still be alive. The names we can see are Gertrude Yeomans, who is aged 40, married, and she does unpaid domestic duties. Mary E. Fleming, aged 35, married, and does unpaid domestic duties. Edna Fleming, aged 2, and Alice Hurst, aged 35, married, and does unpaid domestic duties. It's interesting that the names we can see are married women doing unpaid domestic duties. Remember, originally youth hostels did not employ staff, it was all run on a volunteer basis. So are these ladies locals who clean the hostel on a volunteer basis, or are they guests? After the Second World War, the hostel was in dire need of renovation. The new owners, British Rail, were unwilling to do that without significantly increasing the rent, so the YHA began negotiations to take it over. They finally succeeded in September 1955 and promptly started work. It was not until 6th of July 1958 that the hostel was reopened with great fanfare by the Lord Mayor of Manchester. The reopening coincided with the hostel's Silver Jubilee. It continued as a youth hostel until 1969 when it was sold to Brian Daly, who lived there until his death in 2015. Most noticeably, early on during its years as a youth hostel back in February 1936, a certain George Orwell stayed at Cliff Park Hall. He visited Rudyard whilst conducting his research for the Road to Wigan Pier, which sought to expose the working and living conditions of the economically deprived in the north of England during that time.
You know what it probably ends up being?
Got some outbuildings here. I think it's just where the boiler is. Yeah, it's just a boiler room. Big millstone on the floor. Oh my god. I think this was a garage. Something that's been blocked up. There's just more stuff. Right, so which way do we go first? This place is like a maze. It's huge. There's rooms going off everywhere. See, everything's been smashed. It's like partition walls. All been kicked through. Some bits of like furniture and decorative stuff all just kicked on the floor. Goodness me, gotta be careful where I step. Oh my goodness. Look at the ceiling. My God. There's bits going in all directions. Don't know what that was. Looks like it could have been a hallway. And we've got a big room through there. Got a corridor down there. Another room. Let's go in here first. There's a massive beam come down. There's just stuff all on the floor. Look at this beam. What the hell? Look at the upstairs. This place is just wrecked. Look at the ceiling. Good grief. You can see how beautiful it is up there. I'm not going to go too far into this room because that ceiling doesn't look very safe. Looks like there's a hole down to the basement there. Good grief. What a mess. You can see a fireplace up on the top floor there. Look at this beam, look. Oh my God. That's just mental. Right, let's carry on down this hallway. There's another room here. This door. There's just rooms going off everywhere. Oh, I've got a staircase. I've just got to remember where I've been. Look at this staircase. Oh my goodness, look right up there. It's just remembering, oh my God, there's holes in the floor here, so we won't venture in here. What an amazing building. So we will have a look upstairs, but it's just remembering where I've been downstairs. place is insane. There's a brand new shower there, look. Fucking hell. That was a bird. A crow. Look at that. It's brand new. This place is mental. You can see out there, look. There's just rooms everywhere. And this is just downstairs. Mental. Look at the ceiling. More rooms. Another room through there. And shutters. Just the decoration everywhere. Let's go in here. Another grand room. Look at the fireplace. Big bay window, still with the shutters on. Let's carry on through. Like I said, I've got to remember where I've been. There's another corridor. See there, into another room. Oh, this is, we've been round in a circle. This is that I wasn't going to come through. Oh, that's cool. So I managed to see what was through here. But again, you can see up through the ceiling. Oh. Right, let's venture this way. There's that outdoor bit. Not sure what that is. Oh goodness, we've got a room down here. Look at the doors. Very medieval looking. I think this is the room where the four-poster bed was, but it's been absolutely trashed. Yeah, this was the old guy's bedroom. This is behind the stone steps. Yeah, there was a four-poster bed here until, I don't know, 12 months or so. It's been absolutely wrecked. Oop. It's like a medieval room. So he'd have had stone steps up to his bed, look. Looks like he had a kitchen over there, so it was all... Was it a kitchen? As you can see, it looks quite... He's done it as like a medieval room. So that door there is looking back out into one of the corridors. We could see through here, because we could see these cupboard things here. Yeah, that's where his bed was. No more. rooms just go on and on. That looks like it could have been the front door, the main entrance. Just come out into another corridor which is absolutely rotten and collapsed, so I'm not going down there. And then there's another doorway here where you can see through. It's all collapsed. I don't think I can step over. Might be able to. Well, I'm not going in now. Jesus Christ. Oh my goodness, look at that. And there's another big room down there. Bloody hell. Right, so I'm just back in the original corridor that I came, because that's where I came in through there. So, just got a couple of rooms down here. Don't know how bad the corridor is. Got a room here. Oh, it just looks like a storeroom. Looks like it was a pantry. Jeez. What a waste of a building, isn't it? I think that's the other side of that collapsed bit, but you can see it's all collapsed here, so don't know how far I'm going to be able to get. Oh, there's freaking birds flying about. Well, that corridor I just walked down is the one I was looking down, because that is the same door I was looking through. So I've just gone round in a circle. Right, I think that is... Jesus fucking Christ. So I think it's time to head upstairs and see how much we can see. I don't think the crows are very happy about me being here. But yeah. Jesus Christ. Let's head upstairs. Up the grand staircase. Now, the good thing is, the staircase does look like it's made from stone. But look at that up there. I'm not sure how much we're actually going to be able to see. But we'll go and have a look. Oh my goodness, yeah, like I said, I don't think I'm going to see much up here. Look at that. It's all the wood. It's absolutely rotten. But the decoration is just absolutely stunning. Got another hole in the floor there. I'm just sticking to the stone. I'm not moving off the landing. Stick to the landing. Goes on quite a way. Not. I'm just being cautious about standing on any wood. this was a bathroom down here. Yeah, I don't think we'll go any further. See the funky wallpaper in there? Got a big room in here. This was probably above the one downstairs with the bay window. Just got to be mindful. Oh my goodness. Look at that fireplace. Big holes in the floor there. Let's go over to the window. God, this place is a maze. Absolute maze. Big cast iron fireplace. You can see all the decoration. Right, let's carry on through. Someone's pulled the fireplace out. Oh my god. Like another landing down there. Again, all the mouldings are just beautiful. Someone's pulled the fireplace out. There's another room in here. It's very dark. Ooh. No, we won't venture too far in. Massive hole there. Okay, onto the landing. That's just into that room I've just been into. More rooms. Let's have a look. Another big hole in the ceiling. And another little room. Imagine exactly the same as the one I've just been into. And then we've got steps down. Now I think this is the bad part, so I don't know how far I'm going to go. Right, well that's a nope. I'm not going that way. As you can see, there is no floor. We've got a room in there. Don't know if you can see. And then we've got that big hole, which I presume is, yeah, what I looked at downstairs, so that's a no. The floor is absolutely rotten. going any further. Shame, but I'm not risking it. So I think I have been all round what is safe to go round. But it's an absolute beautiful building, and it's such a shame. Look at the lock on the door. It's just completely rotten.